Hello, my friends. I'm Dr. Tracy Lewis. Welcome to Victory Over Grief. This is going to be an exciting moment in your life. Trust me, your life will never be the same. You will have victory over grief. Hello, friends. I'm so glad you are here to join us for session 3 of Victory Over Grief. Over the past couple of weeks, we've been looking at what grief is, how it comes to us, what loss is, and we've recognized, hopefully you have, that there are compounded losses in our life. So when another loss comes, many times we're not able to manage it simply because we've never managed the losses in our past. I think that's a very helpful thing for us to understand, especially regarding today's lesson. And we begin to understand other behaviors that take place in our life, why other things are going on in your life that you may not have realized are related to your loss and they're related to grief. We're going to talk about the steam. Steam. What is steam when it comes to our grief? Steam is short, temporary, external adjusting moves. Let me say that again. Short, temporary, external adjusting moves. There are actions and behaviors that we take in our life that really are short in nature. They only last temporarily. They transpire in external ways. And we are trying to adjust ourselves from the feelings and emotions that are buried. And so we're taking an action in the wrong direction. So steam, let me say that again, is short, temporary, external, adjusting moves. And so we're going to look at those today, and we're going to begin to understand why we've got all this other craziness and drama and all these other issues in our life and how they're related to not addressing loss and grief. Are you ready? These particular moves that we take continue to weaken us and even harm us from our ability to manage or to remove pain. You see, because we're trying to cope outside with outside means for an internal problem. Let me tell you an example of a story I once heard about a man who went into his house and it was dark and he dropped his keys in his home. And he looked profusely for them, trying to find them. He tried to turn on the lights, but the lights weren't working. His power was out. And he was looking all over for where he had left his keys. After a little while, he walked outside of his door and he started looking out in his yard for his keys. A neighbor walked up and said, "What are you looking for?" And he said, "I'm looking for my keys. I lost them." So he's searching all over the yard for his keys. And the neighbor then began to say, "I don't see them anywhere. Where is the last time you remember having them?" He said, "Oh, I dropped them in the house." We oftentimes look outside of where our pain really is instead of looking where we know it can be found. And other people also try and use external means to help us deal with something that is an internal matter. That's where steam comes in. What exactly is steam? Let me tell you. Steam is short, temporary, external adjusting moves. Let me give you another example. You've got a pot on the stove and it starts to boil, so you turn the temperature down. So you temporarily take some of the heat off. But if you allow that pot to continue to sit there with water in it on a lower temperature, even though you adjusted it a bit, it will still come to a boil. Because after a period of time, that level of temperature will also increase the pressure. What we have to remember and realize is that any type of loss creates some kind of amount of emotional energy. I want you to say that word with me. Emotional energy. Yes, emotions have energy. We carry energy with us everywhere we go. We carry it into our atmospheres. We carry it into our home. We carry it around our friends. We have either negative or positive energy all around us. And a lot of our energy is exuded from what is going on the inside of us. It is because of the other things we learned about in our last lesson that our ability to navigate through pain and remove it gets hindered. For one, we talked about how people are trying to use the wrong methods to absolve their grief. People are trying to use practices and manage their grief in ways that will not help them. And other people tell us the wrong, inaccurate ways to overcome our grief and have victory. So what happens is we begin to store that energy of pain on the inside of us. And that is like the pot under the temperature of life, and it begins to boil, and soon steam comes out. Early in our life, we are taught to cover up, hide, and mask our feelings and our emotions, or bury them. We bury them with things, we bury them with food, we bury them with activity, we bury them in relationships, we bury them with substances, with wrong behaviors, with obsessive behaviors, with dysfunctional behaviors, with addictive behaviors. And many times the family units and the nurturers that we have around us have taught us these methods and these behaviors. And these learned behaviors become a way of life for us. They become our normal. And we have not resolved or solved anything in our life. We begin to participate in this illusion that the things that make us feel different, not better, are the way that we should resolve the issues of our life. We use short-term behaviors offered by food, alcohol, and other obsessive compulsive behaviors to give us a faulty sense of long-term relief, but actually we're not resolving anything. We find that most of these activities are not harmful by themselves, but when they become obsessive and when they become aggressive, then we begin to lose even more than where we started. They become harmful when we engage in them for the wrong reasons, and when we are trying to bury and push down energy that continually comes up. What happens is we have to continue to do more and more of that activity until it becomes an addictive or a compulsive behavior in order to keep the pressure down. We often become distracted by this temporary relief, and it becomes our focus. It becomes our way of living. It becomes our new normal. We have never resolved anything that we intended to resolve by engaging this activity. We have just received temporary relief, but no resolution to our problems. We soon forget that the relief that we are seeking is the satisfaction of completion from the pain of the relationship that we experienced in our loss, and the incompleteness of that relationship due to our inability to navigate through the pain. It's also due to the lack of 10 nutrients that every human being needs that we're going to talk about in a further lesson. And when we don't have those nutrients in our soil, and when we don't have the right foundation in our life, and we have learned behaviors from our nurturers and our family units and our society that have taught us wrongful ways to obtain freedom, only obtaining more bondage instead, we begin a vicious cycle, and we forget the whole reason the cycle started. Proper soil causes us to live and build a strong life. I call it tree life. And without those 10 nutrients, which we're going to discuss, when these other issues come and these short, temporary, external adjusting moves begin to take place, we don't have any foundation to go back to figure out how to get out of the trap we find ourselves in. And now our loss and our grief and the pain of it is compounded with other destructing and disturbing behaviors. You see, short temporary actions don't really work. They're temporary. They only relieve, they don't remove. Say that with me. Short-term actions only relieve, they don't remove. It may work for a week, a month, even up to a year, but sooner or later, there's going to be a crash because it doesn't remove pain, it only covers it. The behavior that we're engaging in only covers pain. It does not remove it. So let's take a look at our pot of pain. Imagine a pot that is filled with water sitting on a stove, and the fire underneath it is burning, and it's burning high, and the water is heating up. When the water heats up, it begins to boil. Then we will begin to see steam that comes up out of the cover that's on the pot that's trying to push it up. A pressure is pushing it, and steam is being exerted from it to relieve some of the pressure in the pot. When we consider the amount of time the pot is sitting on the heat, we can also know that the level of the temperature that's in the pot will be increased. In fact, if we leave it in that situation long enough, it will almost seem like an explosion is about to take place, or water will begin to come out from the sides. Now, let's add some of your pain to that pot. First, it seems manageable, and it doesn't seem to make a difference in the level of pressure that's in the pot. But as we continue to add more and more stones of pain in that pot, the pressure continues to build up, and there's no room for the water or our life to function in the midst of the pain. That's when the steam begins to take place, and we start to participate in steam. Short, temporary, external adjusting moves begin to take place in our life. It's a way that we use to not remove the stones, just remove the pressure. My friend, if you have spent your life not removing the stones, just removing the pressure, you have been living your life just in the steam life. You've just been practicing and participating in short, temporary, external adjusting moves to keep your life together and to try and function, survive, and manage. I want you to know God doesn't want you just to function, survive, and manage in life. He wants you to live life to the fullest. He wants you to experience joy and peace and satisfaction. He wants you to be able to focus on the things that matter, not on these external behaviors and keeping them working and keeping them moving so that the pain doesn't take over in your life and the pot of your life does not explode. So part of the reason we don't know how to remove pain and we don't know how to remove the loss and the grief that we're experiencing is because we're so busy trying to take on these short, temporary, external adjusting moves to keep everything going that we've never even addressed the real reason or the root of the problem in our life. And we're just removing pressure, not pain. This practice creates an illusion of victory that is short-lived, causing you to forget the very reason and the very root of where your pain came from. In fact, you'll begin to enter into these behaviors and you'll think that's what your life is all about. And you'll, what it seems, forget about the pain, but really this pain has become entangled and entwined in destructive behaviors in your life. What are some of those destructive behaviors? Let's talk about them. You started out with pain. It's in your pot. And then, instead of removing those stones, the water of life just kept getting added and the heat of life just kept getting added. And you tried to cover with a lid to keep everything together. And so now you've added another layer, which we call oftentimes dysfunctional behaviors and addictive behaviors, to keep down the pain. And we deal with the addictive behaviors and we deal with the compulsive behaviors, never looking at how they got started in the first place and what's going on inside the pot, what's going on inside internally that is causing you to take measures of external adjustments and moves to keep the emotional energy that you have from taking over your life, from blowing up, from having compulsive things take place. One of the most dangerous things about these external behaviors is that they don't work. They're only temporary. And two, you lose more than you lost in the very beginning. Your loss history begins to increase and your gain decrease. Your joy and your peace decrease, and your frustration and your depression and your aggravation and your unhappiness increases. So this explosion, when the explosion takes place, other things immediately show up. Thoughts of suicide, divorce, homelessness. These are the fruits of esteem. Addiction, alcoholism, hopelessness, depression. So what is the pain in the pot? We know it's the loss of my mother. It's that I was raped when I was 16. It's that I lost my spouse to cancer. It's that I lost my mother to COVID. That's the pain. But the steam are alcoholism, addiction, gambling, excessive eating, excessive shopping, depression, isolation, pornography. So we have all these new emotional behaviors from this negative energy of pain beginning to create steam in our life. We begin to have these behaviors, these energy relieving behaviors through excessive exercise, going habitually to the casino, buying multiple lottery tickets that we know we can't afford, buying clothes that we don't need, buying another huge item to put in our house to temporarily gratify this place in us that keeps us from feeling pain. So we're taking action and we're taking moves that are destructive in nature and they're not resolving anything. Have you had an emotional explosion that was larger than your circumstances? What do I mean by that? Well, your child spilled milk on the floor and you went ballistic over your child spilling milk on the floor. It was a very small thing, but your pot of pain is so high that you just exploded in anger over the simplest thing. Anger problems can't be resolved, really removed from your life until you deal with the pain in your pot. Are you getting to see it? Are you beginning to understand that you have this pot and you have these rocks of pain and they just keep filling up and the water of life and the flames of life just keep bringing that pot to a place where you're about to boil and overflow. And so instead of overflowing and instead of dealing with the pain, you have steam. You have short-term, external adjusting moves like gambling and pornography and excessive shopping, excessive eating, eating disorders, bulimia, anorexia, cutting, and all of these different things that are compulsive. They're reactive, they're explosive, they're damaging, and they're outbursts of anger, irritability, lying, cheating, even shoplifting is another excessive compulsive external adjustment to relieve a temporary problem. And some people say, I shoplift because I'm bored. I like the challenge. No, that boredom comes from not dealing with the root of your issues. This, my friend, is a defining moment regarding your victory over grief. Can you see all of these behaviors in your life that bring you shame and guilt and remorse and regret? You're going about healing yourself the wrong way. You're going about trying to cover pain instead of remove pain. And until you take the lid off the pot and begin to reach inside and grab out the stones and crush them and remove them so that the water and the pressure and the fire of life no longer cause you to explode or to have addictive and aggressive and compulsive behaviors in your life, you won't find peace, and you won't find hope, you won't find joy, you won't find satisfaction, you won't get your focus back, you won't find your purpose. One person was sharing with me as they were looking at our video speaking about this series, that the part that caused them to say, yes, I want to enroll, is I asked a question. Do you even know what your purpose is? Why you're here? What is the value and the purpose of your existence? You will never be able to find that, my friend, if you have allowed your life to be covered, your purpose to be covered with the stones of pain. The pot is full. Think about the losses that we wrote down in our first and our second week. You probably wrote down 10 to 15. Many of us shared different losses that we had gone through, and we recognized that they hadn't ever been processed. They hadn't ever been removed. They hadn't ever been dealt with. And so we had these compounding, insurmountable amount of pain in our life. And recently, we might have had a serious, significant event of loss, and the lid blew off, and the pressure was too much. And we begin to engage in these short and temporary adjusting external behaviors and moves that have caused that steam in our life to let it off for a minute. And then tomorrow, the pain returns. Why does it return? Because we're using again the wrong method, a destructive method that we externally do to ourselves. Others don't do it to us. We do it to ourselves. So we talked about how other people will try and get us to use the 5 stages of grief. And other people, professionals will teach us that. And other people will tell us, don't feel bad. You can get another one, and it's just going to take time, and all these other phrases. And we try and work with those. But then when those 2 things don't work, and many other things I'm sure, but those 2 significant things don't work, and then we get on medication, and medication doesn't work, because popping a pill doesn't remove your problems either. So those of you that are just taking pills to become numb, that's another type of steam that you're trying to remove the emotional energy in your life that has become so overwhelming that you're trying to supplement it, you're trying to adjust it, you're trying to keep the lid on your pot so that you don't lose control of your life. And so that's how you're starting to control your life. But now, the very purpose of your life is about taking pills, and the very purpose of your life is getting the next hit in your addiction. The very next purpose in your life is get up and what can I buy today? Or the next purpose is how many hours can I work so that I don't have to think? Well, how much gambling can I do so I can focus on something to remove my thoughts, to remove my feelings, to move them over into another arena so that I don't have to address my pain. And after a surmountable amount of time, you forget completely the very reason these behaviors began, and they become your new normal in life. Shortly after that, you lose your marriage because of alcoholism, you lose your job because of addiction, you lose your home because you can't pay your bills because you're tore up all the time. You've lied so much to other people that no one believes you, no one trusts you. You've stolen things. You've acted in behaviors. You lost a huge debt in gambling. That was your house payment or your next or your next car payment. And so now you have this spiral thing going on of loss after loss after loss after loss that's compounding from the very beginning where the excessive behaviors and compulsive behaviors began. Does that make sense to you? It's amazing. So what do I do about it? Well, first, I've got to acknowledge that I've got an issue. I've got pain. And I've been trying to use this method and that method, and now I'm internally doing something to my own demise. And I am becoming destructive, self-destructing by using short and temporary external adjustments and moves that are damaging my life and impacting my destiny. And I can't even begin to find my purpose. Until all that debris is removed, until all of that pain is removed, at least a large amount of it, you're not going to even be able to see your purpose. Does that make sense? I want to help you today. I talked about some of the steam that might go off, but there are a few other things that are a part of those short, temporary, external adjusting moves, like narcissism and PTSD and compulsive disorders, OCD, and those kind of things, negativity, criticism, antagonism, pessimism. These are things that travel up from behaviors into thoughts. So now we can also engage not only in external behaviors, but we can also see those external behaviors become something where it begins to creep into our thoughts, and we even have more continual problems in our personality, in our relationships, in our mental well-being. Not only our emotional well-being is being damaged, but our mental well-being is being damaged along with it. And we also know that our physical well-being can be damaged by all of these external measures that we are taking. So I want you to take a minute, and I want you to get out that piece of paper, and I want you to write down some of the things in your life that you can see by what we've shared that you're having problems with. Excessive behaviors, compulsive behaviors, emotional issues that are out of control. What areas of your life are not in balance? Are you bulimic? Have you been cutting? Have you thought about taking your life, and hopelessness and despair have taken over? Your pot is too full, my friend. And the external adjustments that you've been making have no longer had an effect on you to the point that you become hopeless and despair. And that's why you're thinking about suicide. That's not the right choice. And I can help you to figure out how to stop this hamster wheel that's going on in your life, to stop the dysfunctional behaviors, to stop these kinds of things from going on by removing pain. Say that with me. I am about to be courageous, and I am about to remove the pain from my pot, because steam is only temporary. Now, maybe you're also another individual that has another dilemma from this pot of pain. Perhaps you had a good upbringing, you had a spiritual foundation, you were raised in a fairly good home, you had the light of even God's word or structured principles of life, and you were raised in a way that you knew you do not enter in and engage in such behaviors as alcohol and drugs and stealing. But you still feel the pressure of the pain. Well, what begins to happen to that individual when the fire of life gets high and they don't engage in these external activities and moves out of temporary relief? Internal things begin to happen. Infirmities begin to set in. High blood pressure, seizures, blood clots, esophagus problems, lung problems, kidney problems, digestive problems, heart problems. What do you hear is happening? What is infected? Just like your life system outside in living from the external behaviors begins to be destroyed, your internal life system begins to be destroyed. Pain will begin to attack your organs. That's what I said, your organs. Your prostate, your colon, your thyroid, your kidneys, your pancreas, and sicknesses and disease begin to take place even at an earlier time in life than they should ever take place. You eat right, you exercise, and yet you have a heart problem. You eat right, you exercise, you sleep well, and yet you have a kidney disease. You eat right, you exercise, you sleep well, you're taking care of the things that you know you're supposed to do to cause your body to remain healthy and whole, and yet you have high blood pressure. You have high cholesterol. You have issues in your kidneys, issues in your pancreas, issues in your heart, breast cancer, all of the things in life, the cysts, the organs, the things that cause you to live now are being attacked. And you're going to one doctor after another, taking one medication after another, trying to resolve something that had you dealt with grief, had you dealt with pain in your life, may have never cropped up in your physical body. Now, if those things have occurred, you still can slow the process down in your physical ailments by addressing your pain. It is not God's will for your lifespan to be shortened. It is God's will for you to live out your full destiny, His full plan for you, the very reason He created you. And as I close our lesson today, I hope that you realize that these short, temporary, external adjusting moves that you've been doing, they can be stopped. Once you begin to remove the pain, it will be easier for you to bring balance back into your life again and resolve those issues that are secondary to your pain. Did you hear me? They're secondary. They're not the real issue. They're symptoms of the real issue. They're secondary problems to the real issue. The real issue, my friend, is dealing with the pain and your relationship to it and removing that pain and loss. I hope this has helped you today. And as I close this lesson, I want to talk about the fact that you have a purpose and you have a plan, and you may not even know what that is because pain has started so early in your life and you have not known how to deal with it that you say, I don't know how to find my purpose. Let's deal with the pain first, and guess what will happen? The purpose will come forth. The desires and the good things and the ambitions and the hope will be restored to you. We're not going to even try and tell you how to remove those symptoms because we know that once we remove the pain, the symptoms will begin to decrease. You won't have a need to temporarily, externally adjust through these wrongful behaviors to remove the kinds of feelings and emotional energy that you're experiencing. Because guess what's going to happen? The heat's going to be turned off when life comes. The water isn't going to boil, and you are going to learn how to remove each and every stone as they come, one at a time, because we're going to empty the pot, and then as more pain gets in your pot, you'll say, oh no, I'm not going back there. I'm not going back to my addiction. I'm not going back to the alcohol. I'm not going back to gambling. I'm not going back to pornography. I'm not going to lose another spouse. I'm not going to lose another home. I'm not going to lose another job. I'm going to remove this pain right here, right now, and I now know how to process and remove pain from my life. That's where we're taking you, into the action process. But before we could really take you there, you had to understand what grief is. You had to understand what loss is. You have to understand why it's unmanageable in your life. And then you had to understand why all these other crazy behaviors are going on, that you are blaming yourself and telling yourself you're not a good person, or you've had problems with the law, or you've lost precious people that you love, all because of addictive, compulsive behaviors that have bound you in this this cycle or this cyclone of boiling water that has not removed. See, because no matter how much the water boils, the rocks aren't coming out. The only things coming out is negative energy, compulsive behavior, addictive behavior, aggressive behavior, and things that are going to torment you and remove the quality of your life. The other thing that's going to happen is sickness and disease is going to set into your body, and you are not going to know where it came from. Sometimes we say that sicknesses are hereditary or they're genetic. But if we also look at the genetics of pain and the history of pain, we can see that probably those that came before us in our ancestors and in our genealogy were also people who suffered a significant loss and significant pain, and no one told them that was their problem. So they spent all their attention on their addiction. They spent all their attention on their compulsive behaviors. They learned how to manage life within abnormal behaviors and never reached a quality life. They lived in torment, they lived in fear, they lived in hoarding or pornography or some other kind of lifestyle that was not conducive to a quality life. Oh my goodness, I hope you're seeing the revelation during this session today of the very thing that you've been spending your energy and life on is like spinning the wheels in your car and not going anywhere. Or like a little hamster getting on a wheel, rolling around in the same place over and over again. And when that doesn't work, he just jumps on another wheel and runs that wheel over and over again, but never has peace. I want you to have peace. I want you to experience quality life. I want you to find your purpose, because we need you in this world to make a difference and to make a change and transform other people's lives and rescue other people out of these fallacies and illusions of victory. I hope you're seeing that this process is for you. I hope that you're seeing now that you're ready to take some action. We've got to lay just a little bit more foundation for you to understand where wholeness comes from, so that when you begin to remove the stones, you'll know what to put in their place. You'll know how to guard and keep your garden. You'll know how to take measures to remove your pain. You'll be able to identify why the pain is there, how to remove it. Yeah, that's what we're going to work on. I just want to remind you of this. God's intent was that you have a plan and a purpose for existence. And He is the creator of the universe. Think about this. If I said to you, I want you to create a pie. And I don't tell you what kind of pie. I just said, oh, any kind of pie. I want you to create a pie that I can eat. And I want you to present it to me. So you go in your kitchen, you go, oh, what kind of pie am I going to make? Okay, you decide to make a raspberry pie. And you say to yourself, what kind of crust is this pie going to have? And what kind of raspberries is it going to have? Is it going to be a cold pie? Is it going to be a hot pie? Are these going to be raspberries that are sauteed or whatever you call that? I don't even know what it's called. But they're cooked down and they're caramelized and they're put in sugar and they're made into a syrupy, fruitful sauce. I'm making you hungry, aren't I? Or are they going to be these frozen raspberries that I'm going to mix and whip together with a cream and an icing, and it's going to be a cold pie or a hot pie? Is this pie going to have a crust on the top, or is it going to have Cool Whip on the top? And where am I going to get my raspberries from? And what ingredients do I need to mix inside of this pie? Because I can't just put raspberries in there. I'm going to have to mix some other ingredients to make the filling of the pie taste delicious. So as a creator, the creator of the universe, do you think that God did not think intently about what you would look like, what kind of personality you would have, what kind of voice sound would you have, what kind of gender would you be, what kind of shape would your body have, and what kind of life would you live, and what kind of family would you be born into, and what kind of color and tone would your skin be, and how long would your arms be, and how long would your feet be, and how tall would you be, or how short would you be, how much weight would you have, or how little? Yeah. God thought very deeply about who you would be and what you would become. In fact, we're told in Psalm 139 that he wrote a book before any of the pages began to be, as you were formed in your mother's womb. God wrote a book about your life, and they're written on those pages before any of them came to be. He's already written. He already made a plan. But loss came in your life. Tragedy came in your life. Significant events came in your life and robbed you from the path you were on to find victory and to find that purpose and to be able to read the pages of that book. And loss, my friend, has got you stuck on a page. And when you got stuck on that page, in order to try and turn that page, you've used short, temporary, adjusting external means, steam, to try and get there. But steam wouldn't turn your page. And so you're stuck right there, right now. And I want to help you begin to finish the book of your life. I want to help you turn the page of your life. I want to help you remove pain and move past pain and say goodbye to pain so you can live again. God had you in mind. God had many thoughts about you, even in the amount of hairs on your head when he made you. In fact, the Word of God says that he counts the very hairs on your head. He knows our rising up and our lying down. He knows our coming and our going. He knows our life before any of it came to be. And the enemy came to try and stop you from fulfilling that purpose and that life that your Creator God made for you. And I want to help you get back on the journey that God fully intended, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you a future and a hope. Yeah, that's where we're going. So I hope that you'll join us in our chat this week. I hope you'll also join us in our next session where we're going to look at the core of our fruit. We want to be like a tree planted by the rivers of Jordan. We're going to talk about some rivers. We're going to talk about you being a tree. We're going to talk about the fruit of your tree. And we're going to talk about apples next time we come together. But join us on the chat this week and join us for session 4 of Victory Over Grief. Because I know this, we are well on our way to victory. All we've been doing is strategizing for the battle to remove the pain and to take the process necessary to have victory in all that we say and all that we do and have a life that is pleasing and prosperous and happy and whole. God bless you. Thank you for joining us on Victory Over Grief.